Okay, so I got another DC Multiverse figure to unbox for you today. On Monday, I will be unboxing the Riddler from Batman Forever. Next week, I'm going to be opening up all the Batman Forever figures. I would go ahead and open them up now, but I don't really want to open up one and then have to wait till Monday to open up the rest. I want to open them all up like, but 4 days in a row like I like to do a lot of the times when I have a build a figure wave like that. So, but I do have some other cool stuff to open up. So we're gonna do today Ambush Bug. Now if you don't read comics, he's probably going to be a little bit more of an obscure character for you. But those of us who read comics in the '80s, we remember Ambush Bug. He was created by Keith Giffen. First appeared in DC Comics Presents uh, as a Superman villain initially, but the character throughout his subsequent appearances would evolve away from villainy and just kind of be more of a nuisance, maybe like an anti-hero, but I would say like more along the lines of being a good guy than a bad guy. And the artwork here, I really like this artwork because I don't think it's actually Keith Giffen himself, but it does look like a similar style, like they're purposely homaging his style. Keith Giffen, of course, passed away a few years ago, so it's a shame he didn't live to see this. I'm sure he would have really liked seeing his character turned into an action figure. So anyway, also old school comics fans will recognize the layout of it with this uh, yellow border with the Ben Day dots on it and the monochromatic background. Those of us who read Who's Who in the DC universe in the 1980s will remember that design. That one was the work of Neil Posner. He was the guy who came up with. He was the art director for DC throughout most of the 80s and on into the early 90s. Unfortunately, he passed away like way too young. Uh, Man, I keep talking about people dying, and so I'm sorry, but uh, but he's a talent that will not be forgotten. He also did a little bit of writing. He wrote an Aquaman miniseries in the '80s. That was the one that had the blue Aquaman costume, if you remember that. So yeah, Ambush Bug. It makes sense that he would have a Who's Who type background because he knows that he's a comic book character. Ambush Bug didn't just break the fourth wall; he shattered it. Hey, you kids like Deadpool? You saw that new Deadpool and Wolverine movie? It's really good, wasn't it? I'm guessing you saw it because it made like well over $1 billion at this point. Very successful movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Well, Ambush Bug was Deadpool before Deadpool even existed. So a lot of people talk about Deadpool being kind of a knockoff of Deathstroke, and he was kind of visually similar to Deathstroke. But honestly, I kind of feel like the way that Deadpool kind of ultimately wound up owes a lot to Ambush Bug, and I don't really hear that talked about a whole lot. So since Ambush Bug knows he's a comic book character, he's probably read his own Who's Who entry. It makes sense that the artwork on the back would look like a Who's Who entry, and I really appreciate that as an old school comic book fan. So here's a look at the side. It says Ambush Bug, DC Classics. For the most part, it's pretty similar to what we've seen from these Mcfarlane boxes so far. Let's go ahead and open them up. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get this figure. I had seen him once before at this GameStop up in Buford. The one that I went to get the Riddler, I went to the not the same GameStop. I went to the one at the Mall of Georgia, and this one was nearby. I wanted to stop into the Target near there, and I realized, oh yeah, there's this other GameStop over here. Might as well pop in there. It's been a while since I've been over there, and last time I was over there, they still had this figure. But I didn't really have the money for it at that time, so I didn't buy it then. But since I had a little bit of extra scratch, I decided to go ahead and pick him up because who knows when I'm going to get over there again. And who knows if I'm going to find Ambush Bug again. He's not been like I would say, like, I wasn't really looking for him necessarily, but I would probably call him a hard to find figure since I haven't really seen him around all that much. He's got the double rubber tabs around the torso here. He's got rubber tabs around each of his limbs at the elbows and the knees. And there's also one around his accessory. No extra hands for this guy. He's just the figure and the accessory is his doll sidekick, Cheeks, the toy wonder, and you can see why he's called Cheeks because he's got them chubby little cheeks. So he's not actually like this is an inanimate object. This isn't actually like technically a character per se. It's literally a doll that he treats as his kid sidekick. Okay. So there we got Ambush Bug out of the package. Pretty simple figure. This appears to be a new buck that is a little more slender than the kind of generic buck they've been using for a lot of these figures. We can see him next to the Riddler. I decided a Riddler would be a good guy to compare him to since they're about the same color, just a slightly darker and more vibrant shade of green for Ambush Bug. But you can see that Riddler has a little bit more bulk to him than Ambush Bug does. Honestly, it kind of makes me wish they had waited a little bit on doing the Riddler because I would have preferred to see them on the skinnier body, but that's just me. All right, so we'll come back to the figure in a minute. He actually does have an extra hand. I didn't notice it because it wasn't in the little plastic insert with the rest of it. But he does have a solid fist hand, so he does have one extra hand. So I stand corrected. Let's have a look. See at the stand, and it is the standard DC Multiverse figure stand we've gotten from a lot of these Mcfarlane figures. A little bit shinier than the one we got for Batman yesterday, but still pretty much matte black with a glossier DC logo embossed onto it. Just not quite as matte as those usually are. And unfortunately, the trading card is not on the same bubble as the stand, which would have made that a lot easier. But I managed to get it off anyway. We've got the same piece of artwork that's on the back of the package. Unfortunately, since it's cropped, we don't get that yellow Ben-Day dot border that I enjoyed so much. But I'm hoping they do a good job with the bio on the back of this trading card because, like I said, he's an interesting character. So let's go ahead and read this. Ambush Bug, DC Classic, data file, real name Erwin Schwab. Erwin Schwab is deeply delusional, morally ambiguous, and obsessed with superheroes. As Ambush Bug, he sought to join their rarefied society in a bodysuit which he claimed fell to Earth from the planet Schwab, harassing superheroes including Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Cobra. Cobra is not a superhero. He is a super villain. So I don't know why they called him a superhero. He displayed the abilities of teleporting and healing from any injury. You know, like Deadpool can also teleport and heal from any injury. See, it goes even beyond the fourth wall thing. Where was I? Failing as a villain and faring no better as a hero, he briefly found his niche and a measure of stability as a bug superhero field correspondent for Channel 52 News. He still maintains that he has cosmic awareness and that reality is merely comic books being read by extra-dimensional superior beings. What a ridiculous notion. Like, I kind of wish they had gone a little more meta with the text on the back here, but maybe they felt like they couldn't match the kind of lunacy that Keith Giffen brought to this character a lot of the times. But, you know, it's still, I think, a pretty good bio of Ambush Bug. All right, so let's have a closer look at the figure. And like I said, this is a pretty standard buck. There's not a whole lot of detail to it or anything like that, but Ambush Bug was pretty much just drawn as being in a kind of spandexy looking light green suit with the goggles and antennae attached to it. Uh, Sometimes, especially in the earlier issues, there was a little bit of a technological kind of detailing to the suit a little bit in the shading. Like the cross hatching you would do for shading had kind of a technological look to it, which was interesting, but I think it kind of got dropped over time. There's some good wrinkles in the top of the mask that I like an awful lot. Adds a little bit of verisimilitude to it, and he's got like this nice, just derpy, happy expression on his face. It fits the attitude of the character, I feel like, pretty well. Uh, the reflections on the goggles are not sculpted in; they're just painted on, which is an improvement over how they did that with Plastic Man. I did not like how the reflections were sculpted into the goggles because it did not make any sense to me. But they're just painted onto Ambush Bug, and you can see his mouth and his teeth and everything like that. Everything's painted individually. They did a really good job with him. And like I said, since this is a fairly plain costume, there's not a whole lot of paint detail after that. He's basically just molded in this light green plastic, and all the paint detail is on his face. But they did do a really nice job with the paint detail in the face, so we'll give him kudos for that. So articulation wise, Ambush Bug can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. He can tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side, turn his head all the way around, really move his head around it any which way you want to. It's got really good neck articulation to it. He's got butterfly joints, so they go back about that far and go forward about that far. So that's about the range of motion there. And of course, the arm rotates all the way around the shoulder, and the arms move up about that far. So really good range of motion on the arms. He does have a bicep, so bicep rotates all the way around. He does have double jointed elbows. That is about the range of motion you're going to get at the elbow, so pretty good range of motion. And then, of course, he has the really cool Mcfarlane ball jointed articulation at the wrist, so you can move his wrists around really whichever way you want and get him into whatever kind of pose you want to as far as that goes. Torso articulation, he does have the good Mcfarlane torso articulation, really good range of motion there. I'm pretty impressed by that. Bend forward about that far, bend backwards about that far. And then, of course, articulation at the waist, pretty similar. So you can get a lot of good dramatic poses out of that. Ambush Bug can kick up about that far, so about 90 degrees. He's got double jointed knees, so that's about the range of motion we get at the knees. And he's got the ball joints at the ankles, like Mcfarlane figures have, so they can rotate all the way around at the ankle and at where the ankle meets the shin and where the ankle meets the foot. Although this one does seem to be like a little stiff. There we go. I got it. So his ankle can bend up about that far and bend downwards about that far. All right. So then we got Cheeks, the toy wonder, who's just like a little slug of a figure. And like I said, he's not supposed to be like a real person anyway. He's a doll. So, and he's molded in this position, the position that you'd want to have Ambush Bug kind of holding him in. So Ambush Bug hasn't had a whole lot of media appearances, and he's kind of a niche character as far as comics go. But he did have one, at least that I know of, at least one appearance that is worth noting in the animated series Batman the Brave and the Bold. He shows up in the very last episode, and much like in the comic books, he's the one who knows that the universe is fictional and that it's being threatened by Batmite, who's actually actively trying to get the series canceled so that it can be replaced with a darker, more grittier version of Batman. They wound up doing Beware the Batman after that, and that didn't last too long. And then they've done the new Batman Caped Crusader animated series on Amazon, and we've had about 10 episodes of that so far. I believe there's going to be a second season, so I guess Batmite did finally get his grim and gritty Batman adaptation, but we can still watch reruns of Batman the Brave and the Bold if we want to. Anyway, since Batmite was trying to get the show canceled, a big part of the the theme of the episode was the idea of TV shows jumping the shark, which of course the idea of jumping the shark came from the Happy Days episode where Fonzie jumped over a shark on water skis. So people tended to call the concept that a show had gone past the point of no return as far as quality goes. They would call that jumping the shark. And Ambush Bug on the episode was voiced by Henry Winkler, so the actor who played Fonzie. So that was really nice. That means Henry Winkler has played two different DC superheroes in Ambush Bug and the Golden Age Atom, who he played in Black Adam. That's Atom, not Adam, so because we're clear on that. Yeah, so that was a fun episode. I liked that episode an awful lot. Let's see, what else do I have to say about Ambush Bug? I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, the figure is fairly simple but effective. It's one of those where they didn't really have to do a whole lot to make an impressive action figure out of Ambush Bug. He's got a pretty plain costume, so it would make a good custom base. Maybe you might want to do a Riddler action figure out of this if you want a skinnier one than the first one they put out, or something like Kite Man might work really well, since he's got the green base to the suit and everything. But I think they did a good job with the antennae. They look really nice. I'm pretty happy with how this figure turned out. So anyway, that's going to be it for this week. Like I said, sorry there weren't too many episodes, but scheduling was just kind of crazy. Next week, starting on Monday, I will be opening up the Batman Forever wave, starting with the Riddler. We're going to start with the Riddler because he's the one that comes with the body for the Nightmare Bat. So I'll have the body to plug all the other pieces onto. And if you want to make sure you don't miss that one, make sure you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Ambush Bug, both the figure and the character in general. And we will talk to you next time. Bye.